Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it, and I'd be able to send watches like this to your inbox as soon as tomorrow morning. If you like our watches, you can buy this one and 1,700 of its close friends on our website, thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell luxury watches on thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing the Lange Sohne Lange 1 Moon Phase. This is the reference 192029 in white gold, and this represents the 2017 model with revised caliber and moon/AM/PM display, but I'm giving away the game. First, let's talk about the fit of the wrist. On my 16 centimeter circumference forearm, you can see this 38.5 millimeter traditionally sized Lange 1 is a perfect match. The Lange 1 is reasonably slim considering it has a fairly vintage-inspired, almost pocket watch-like profile. It's only 10.4 millimeters thick with a generously sloped dome-style bezel, so it easily slides underneath a dress cuff. Every Lange is a dress watch first and foremost. You'll note lug-to-lug, a very manageable 47 millimeters, and the lugs themselves are rather sharply downturned, so the watch really does drape itself across the wrist. I would endorse the traditional 38.5 millimeter Lange 1 for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. And it is a substantial piece. You feel all of that white gold, the relatively deep profile and the substantial, if sharply downturned lugs impart an impressive and gratifying mass to this watch. The strap is nicely executed in large rectangular scale alligator leather with a semi-gloss finish, a folded edge, a monotone stitch, and on the other side you can see supple calfskin. The buckle will be familiar to Lange aficionados. As you can see, it's their traditional Lange signed and vaguely fluted and faceted design. You can see it has some subtle character lines in it. It also has this restraining bar which prevents, if you are one to use the smallest perforations on the strap and you have a small wrist, it prevents the strap from getting so thoroughly pinned on the ardion portion of the ardion buckle that you can't extricate it. Well, that retaining bar means you can strap it down to the smallest hole and not worry about getting stuck on your wrist. Lange always over-engineering. The case lines are simple but pleasing. There's the same kind of slight fluting or bevel that you could see on the buckle. It's a transitional surface between a polished top and a polished flank, so it's not quite as distinct as if one were satin finished, but you can see there is a little bit of complexity and a tapered bevel about that lug. The lugs themselves are dramatically stepped out from the case flank, so they have strong sculptural character and volume in their own right. And you'll note the case band with a contrast between satin and polish. There's even nuance about how the pusher adjuster for the date is polished and satin finished alternately from different facets. Very nicely executed. The bezel entirely in high polish white gold, and the dial likewise festooned with white gold. Let's give ourselves a bit more aperture and light, and you can see that the Lange 1 dial is present and correct. A little bit of calculated asymmetry born of the pocket watch era and the glory days of the original Lange Sohne. There are also complex mathematical relationships between the placement of these items, and if you type in golden ratio Lange 1 on Google, you'll see exactly what I mean. Now, the timepiece is loomed, so there will be a loom shot despite this being a quintessential dress complication. You'll note applied white gold for the indices as well as the stylized Roman numerals, delicate alpha style hands rather than the heavier Dauphine chosen for hours, minutes, as well as the power reserve, a 3-day scale at 3 o'clock. There is a frame, a double aperture for the double date in white gold at what would conventionally be about 1 o'clock, and then there is a complex hybrid display. Zenith did this first, full credit. Before the 2017 Lange 1 Moon, Zenith was doing this, where you have a moon disk superimposed over a 24-hour AM/PM indicator. Now, the reasoning behind that is that a moon phase is relatively static but romantic, whereas an AM/PM indicator is going to change robustly through the course of a day, and indeed you can see the transition from day to night. And the disks being executed in gold raises the luxury factor. So there's a considerable dynamism about that moon phase display. With the addition of the AM/PM, the day with the sun and the cosmos and the stars by night. Of course, you have, just make sure we're not in the danger zone for the date, but you have, there we are, that's why we check, You have a pusher adjuster system for the date that is as crisp as the datagraph's column wheel system. So you may not have a chronograph, but you're going to enjoy the same tactile pleasure of operating the pusher. Now when you pull the crown, you stop the balance because this is a hacking movement. Turn it over though, and you find that it's also a relatively new movement. Let's see if we can get a bit closer and get better details. And of course we can. Now, this is a modern caliber. This is not the caliber that powered the original Lange 1. This is the caliber 121.3 manual wind twin mainspring barrel, 72-hour power reserve. You can see it's been upgraded with a proper Gyromax style Patek Philippe inspired free-sprung balance, so it can take a precise regulation in a chronometer like 5 positions with respect to gravity and then hold it in the face of bumps and disruptions. Nevertheless, romance is not neglected. You've got your 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate, old-timey, present and correct, and you'll note that the black polished swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism remains in place. Likewise, the bridge is still in German silver, a nickel copper zinc alloy that, unlike Swiss rhodium plated brass, is entirely unplated. Thus you see the golden tones of the copper. Glasuta striping, because we're not in Switzerland, we're not going to call them Côte de Genève. A freehand engraved balance cock, and you can see no two of these are exactly alike, not executed with a lathe like guilloche, but executed by hand with a file. It's so distinctive that Lange can actually tell you, if you visit the factory, which one of their artisans crafted your particular component in your particular watch. Beautifully executed. You can see all of the jewels are set in screw-fixed chaton. This is a tradition, again, held over from the pocket watch era, to which Lange, in the modern era, pays endless homage. The jewels themselves are fixed by heat-blued, fired cobalt blue screws, so they are the real deal, kiln-blued, not oxidized with chemicals. And you'll note a three-quarter style bridge in the form of the original East German pocket watches. Black polish on certain screws, the heads of pins, as well as the swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism and the cover for the cock holding the escape wheel. When you turn flush to the camera, you'll also note not only does everything black polish turn black, but you can see the jewel and the screw sinks have been polished in the same sense that the edge of the balance cock as well as the edge of the three-quarter bridge have been polished. It is a mirrored anglage. We probably need a different term for it since we are in Saxony, East Germany. Nevertheless, it's the same technique, and yes, on a Lange it is laid down by hand, not beveled with a machine. Beautifully executed front and back with the romance of the moon phase and the dynamism of AM/PM, as well as the peerless modern heritage of the Lange Sohne Lange 1. You can see and you can own this Lange 1 moon phase on our website. We're back with the Lange 1 Moon. Of course, the Germans always giving you more, under-promising and over-delivering, fully luminescent hours and minutes. You can see the time, but you can also see the power reserve scale. Fun fact, if you rewind to the case back shot of this watch, you'll see it's actually engraved SUG on the back, which is the Zinn Uhren company that actually makes the precious metal cases for Lange. You can see this one, case and all, on our website.